the SITRA exercise is this idea that we are going to look at how you guys analyze situations that occur. Right? So as part of your process report, we expect you to do some analysis. And so as part of that, we do some practicing of analysis. And this is the grading sheet example for the SITRA analysis. So it is there's prerequisites and the team process, and we are talking situations, so SI, situation, theory, reflections, and actions. Okay? So this course is about identifying what's going on, right, which is the situations going on, having some theory to back up your interpretation of the situation, right? Some reflections on what that means and how you behaved and what was your role, and kind of reflecting on the meaning of it, right, on the situations. And steps that you took to remedy it, right? So what were the actions that were taken to remedy any problems or to ensure that things did not become problems. So what you do in SITRA exercises is, having documented something that happened or written about something that happened, we can then go through and see if there are parts of that can be described as either theory, as either describing the situation, theory about group collaboration, reflections on how you responded to that situation, or actions that you set up to take. Right? So in your actual course, you are graded, and we use this for grading, where we say if you want an excellent grade when you've written your team reflections, to get an excellent grade, you should have, well, so they put A and B together, so I'm not sure why, like, apparently there is no way to tell the difference between an A and a B, except one is, an excellent performance, clearly outstanding, and B is a very good performance. But the situations, selects teamwork situations and describes specifically what was said and done and how individual members reacted. Okay, so if you are unable to write about individual situations, if you don't write down when things happen, later on when you go to write the process document, you won't be able to get an A or B because you won't be able to write specific situations down. Right? And also, at the time, you want to record how individual members responded. Right? So this idea is, you should be paying attention to the other people in your group. If you're into the C/D category, selects teamwork situations and describes the team's actions and reactions more generally. Right? So you just pick, fairly clear general things. You've not really been specific. You've not identified specific interactions or individuals. And to merely meet minimum standards, selects teamwork situations and describes the team's actions and reactions generally and to a small degree. So you kind of only write a little bit and you don't really describe it well. And that goes you down to an E. None of you are aiming for an E. Right? That would be a stupid place to aim at. At least aim at a C, even if worried you might get an E. But and fail describes the team's activities but does not select teamwork situations. So if you just describe what you did, just we did this, we did this, we did this, without this situation arose, this is what happened, this is how PMS responded, he said this, this is how Andreas punched him in the face. So, I know, Andreas overreacts all the time. Constantly reacting, but no, if you don't describe the situation, right, and you just say, things were okay in the group, or, yeah, things didn't go well, but we fixed it, that's an F, right, because you've said something, but nothing that we can give you grades for, right? So, and again, you have the same for theory. Now, so applies theory and concepts to put their own cooperation in perspective. Now, I'm not going to go through read the whole list because basically they just diminish from the top mark, right? So, applies theories and concepts to their own situation. In the book of reflections, there are some theories on that you can read in the front. We also expect you, and we'll go through various theories through the semester on group interactions. So with those, we wanting you to learn about group interactions, and we wanted you to try and apply those to your own situations. Right? Now, we've added one that's not in the standard one, which is the animal model. If you want to talk about the animal model and whether people followed that or not, or whether that was a useful model or not, and did those roles emerge, those things you can talk about in terms of that's a theory around McClellan's 3 needs theory. So if you want to talk more about the animal model, you could go into the other theory that is built upon, right? So there's McClellan's 3 needs, which is an organizational, a theory of organizational structure, and the self-determination theory, which back up that particular model for interaction. So if you wanted to describe those more, dig into the theory, right? And that gets you the more of the A category rather than just saying, oh, we used the animal model because Simon said so, because he said it was good. Right? That's not a good argument, right? You guys are at master's level, you don't trust me anymore. I'm just some guy up the front. So theory, dig into why things happen the way they appear to happen. With reflections, analyze this teamwork in an excellent way through both individual and team reflections. So we ask you to write individual reflections, and we need you to write team reflections. Reflects very well on how it felt to give and receive feedback for the individual, and how differences in fields of study affected cooperation, supports the reflections with concrete examples from the teamwork. Okay. So, in that you are supposed to reflect on how it felt to give and receive feedback. So we'll be doing a 2+1 exercise later in the semester. We'll also look at other ways that you can give feedback. Anonymous feedback into a hat, where you can you just write down stuff, put it in the hat, and you shuffle up and someone pulls it out and randomly reads what was written without anyone knowing who wrote it. Right? That kind of an anonymous way to give each other feedback, so you can say things you wouldn't feel comfortable saying directly to people. Right? And so to get an A or a B in the course, you have to be able to talk about how that felt. Right? So I know for some students who aren't really, don't think of their feelings as something they express very often, this is going to be one of the harder bits of the writing, is to say how it made you feel when you read out a negative critique of yourself or a positive critique of yourself. All right? So that's, to get the A or B, that's where you have to start hitting. Right? I have actually, I've raised the issue of some of, certainly my undergraduates have diagnoses around spectrum disorder, right? Autistic spectrum disorder, and they don't have access to their emotions, right? So some of the students, they don't know how they feel. It's just, they don't have feelings like normal people have feelings in the same way that normal people have feelings, right? They have responses and they get upset, but they don't have that cognitive framework around which they reflect on their emotions, right? It's just because they're on the spectrum. Some people on the spectrum are very clearly in touch with emotions, some people aren't. It's just, that's why it's a spectrum disorder. And so I have raised the issue of, what do I do if a student brings me a medical note saying that they don't have access to their emotions? Do they have to write that bit? They haven't responded yet because they've never thought about it. They've never thought that was a possibility. But I also commented that, even for standard computer scientists, usually we don't talk about our emotions very much. I'm the freak in the computer science group where I'll talk about my emotions anytime you like. I'm one of the few. I was told by my girlfriend at university, when I 4-year girlfriend, about 3 years in the relationship, can we stop talking about how we feel? I'm on the far end of talking too much about how I feel. So for me, that's easy. I know that it might not be for you for everyone. The last one is what actions you took. So initial measures, actions, to improve cooperation basis on reflections on the teamwork situation, changes patterns of interactions if necessary, right? So Rachel, my wife, had a situation, or the situation she had when she was at Otago was that she doesn't really function before 10:30 in the morning, right? And so her boss realised that you don't go into her office and say hello until after morning tea. After morning tea, smiles and happy. Before morning tea, so they just changed the way the office works. You don't put morning meetings because that person doesn't function well in the mornings, right? So you adjusted group interactions to get around the kind of I'm not a morning person situation. So gives reasons for the choice of measures, discusses effects, and evaluates the measures in retrospect. Right? So when you make the change, you can discuss, you write up why you made the change, how the change affected the situation, and was that a good idea? Right? Not just we did this and it worked. It's would other things have worked? Did it work as well as you expected it to work? How do you mean it worked? Was what were your measures of saying, that we were unproductive before it and productive after? There must have been some productivity measure, right? Just saying, Hilda came over and said that Peter was doing all the talking, so we stopped him talking, and that was better. Okay, so okay, that doesn't. So that wouldn't be an A or a B, right? That's not, because you stop. How did you stop him talking? What do you mean by better? That was it more inclusive? That how did people feel? How did Peter respond? Was it worse for him but better for everyone else? There is much more you can write about in that sort of situation. All right, so that's where we want to go. So that gives questions about that. Do you understand those categories?
Where do we find that? Because I can't find it on the Blackboard.
I haven't moved this bit over to the Blackboard room yet. That's because it also has now. What I was wanting to use to use was your own reflections that you've been writing, right, to do this exercise, because I think it's better to do that. There is, however, a pre-done one here, and what usually they do is they say, okay, let's have a look at an example. So, Third Village Day, today, version 1. So, what we could have is, and this has all got green marker pen, because they like Post-its and green marker pens and doing anything on paper.
That's on Blackboard. Why are you marking it?
Haha! Get out my marker pen and the Irish way of doing marker pens. I have actually seen someone create touchscreen pens that draw in different colours when you use them on a touchscreen, because they're colour marked, so you can actually do mark over on your PDF documents with a pen. But there are some strange Kickstarter things out there. Right, so in this, it's subtly green, very hard to tell from where you are, but the first situation is this is a description of what was going to happen. So today the goal was to set up more ideas for the project. We spent the first 5 minutes individually writing our ideas on Post-it notes. Then each of us presented our ideas to the rest of the team. Christian thought we could build a detailed model in the range 1:5. We chose to emphasize this idea because Christian has the most expertise within the village thing, right? So the idea here is they're kind of describing what happened. Right? Now, one option is that we do an exercise with a predefined text, which we give you, and then you have to mark up, or we get you to do it, and we come around and talk to you about your individual analysis of your text. So, what I'll do, I decided you're going to do your individual, so I'll show you the second part of this, which is, so they describe the situation, and then that is version 1, which is all coloured green because it just describes the situation. Right? So it's just a description of the situation, and the idea is that at the end of the day, she said she felt misplaced in the village. Christian, however, said he felt he had the hang of things, right? So they're just describing what people see. Right? They then have a second reflection, which they write more detailed, where they now have multiple colours. And I'll try and get that to go to the side. And is this quite wide enough? No, so Control minus. Right. So here, what they've done is they've taken their writing, and what we generally do with the SITRA exercise is we get you guys to get a shared reflection piece of writing you've got, reflection on what a situation that happened. And then we go through and we get you all individually to decide what parts are which category, which is situation, right? So which is green, someone talking about a situation, which is blue, which is a theory, yellow, I'll just get this right, so I don't want to get you wrong. So yellow are action, so blue is reflections, red is theory. Okay, so green, okay, must be coloured. See, it must be coloured green. There. So this is the handbook for supervisors, right? So in this exercise, what I'm supposed to do is I have a lot of things. Each member reads through the text and colours it using the following criteria, about 10 minutes. So situation must be coloured green, theory must be coloured red, reflections must be coloured blue, actions must be coloured yellow.
Would you like take them down again if we mix them up?
No, these are musts for me.
Ah.
I must make you use these colours.
So something like this.
So he's got an example there of that's what they usually do in these exercises. And you know, they tell me all the things I'm supposed to do, right? So I basically ignore that and I run it my own way. So you know, it's guidance. So this is an example of doing a SITRA exercise. So today the goal was to come up with ideas for the project. We came up with we come from different fields of studies now, so we now move into blue category, which makes it difficult to find a project where everyone feels they can contribute. Right? So if we go up to blue, we see blue are reflections. So we've changed colour into reflecting. It makes it difficult. So and feels they can contribute. So this is a reflection about how people feel, whether they feel they can contribute. The yellow is the actions you took, right? So yellow is their actions, and so to come up with as many ideas as possible and to ensure that everyone can contribute, we spent the first 5 minutes individually writing ideas on post-it notes. Then each of us presented our ideas to the rest of the team. Right? So the idea is, we identified how we felt, that you know we're all from different disciplines, so it might feel more difficult to contribute. So to avoid that, to avoid the kind of conflict, we wrote it on post-it notes first, so that we could individually do things. Right? So they say, this is the idea that there's a situation, there is a reflection, and then an action. Right? And so generally they're kind of looking for that kind of structure when you write your future group reflections and into the report. Okay. The reason we bring that up now is so that you can start recording things so that when you write this, you've got material. Okay. So what we're going to do now is you guys are going to pick the reflections you had from that I got you guys to write about group situations last week. We want you each to individually look at those, and if you've got them online, if you've got them in a text document, just highlight them with your Google Docs highlighter pen on your own individual one, and then look to see if you agree. And so what the three of us will do, four of us will do, is thinking of four groups, we can actually kind of hang out with the groups a bit, and just listen in to how you describe these situations. And what we want to do is having done that, see if we can get you to identify where things were situations, where they were reflections, where they were actions that were taken to fix the problem, if you've written those down, and if you've applied any theory that you have from previously. You're unlikely to have any pink, because pink is theory, and in that example they use no pink at all, because they don't bring in theory from group psychology or group interactions. In your final, and I don't expect any of you while you're just talking about what has happened to groups in the past, that you were saying, yes, just as Cobb's model of interaction would say, Christian felt upset. I don't think any of you speak that way, do you? Do any of you speak that way? Do any of you interject references in your normal conversations? No, you don't cite while speaking? No, I don't cite while speaking. Doesn't make a lot of sense.
I only do references. Like, yeah, Christian felt bad alone.
That would be a really interesting way of having a conversation. Christian felt bad. 11. We'll get back to 11 later. I'll tell you what that situation was, but in private. That would be an odd way of interacting. But yeah, so I don't expect you to have much theory. But at this stage, we should try and analyse those things for situations, reflections. Did you mention how it upset people or how they felt or how it influenced them, and any actions that you discussed in your writing? Okay? So, questions? Nope. Okay, so we'll do 10, 15 minutes of that, and then the four of us will come and we'll have a check at what you're doing and how you're going. Okay? So if you have things on paper, we do have markers here if you want to do things on paper, and if you want to print out what you've got, we can go and grab it from the printer and you come back and we'll mark on paper if you prefer to do it that way. So you've got the choice of either doing it on your screens or doing it on paper.
Yeah, because we just did notes, so could we get like an example?
Oh.
No, from the yeah.
Oh, you want to use one of their examples?
Yeah, is that possible?
Okay.
We just took notes from our seeing as we didn't know we were supposed to mark them.
You took notes? You didn't know you...
No, we didn't know that you wanted to do a sort of story.
A story, right. Okay. So you just had pilot.
Yeah, bullet points.
So just took around.
Discuss.
Yeah.
Right.
Experiences.
Yeah, but it was
Right.
We should write previous years.
Yeah, interject.
Yes.
Maybe we can give them like 10-15 minutes.
Yeah.
So a few of them are for the first time here in the class.
Yeah. Okay. So we've got two options. We've had a question here. Can we just get a standardised one to do? So we've got something uniform that has kind of bits in it that we can mark up. Two options. One is spend 15-20 minutes writing a reflection document, and then individually mark it up. Right. So just kind of get something written down and then start doing the markup. And then we can either print it out or we can do it online. And I will go and find an appropriate reflection. I've got some from the process documents from last year. So I can give you some of what our students wrote last year, and then you can decide, you can analyse their work. Alright? So we'll give you a couple of minutes to do that, and I'll go and I'll find my previous reflection documents and share a snippet of that with you. Okay? Team 10? Okay, so either write up your own or I'll find an example.
If you can find it,
Should we write one or should we?
Yes, but that's the standard one they make everyone do all the time.
How many of us actually have these?
Yes.
I think the point was it would be nice if they can reflect on their each of them.
Yeah, my thought was like, or things that they had, because then they can draw out their own experiences. So just giving you someone else's, because there's a bunch of things in here that I don't know because I'm not one of these people. And so, but to some extent, that idea of when your marker is marking it, they're also not one of the people. So you have to get at the point where someone who isn't in the situation can understand what's going on. Right? So I think you might need to do it twice. This process, right? Once now, very early, get them thinking that way, get them recording stuff, and then later, when they've got more reflective documents, they can reflect on themselves. But I'll also grab some reflections from previous, so some sections from previous hand-in reports. So. Okay.